So we don't normally cover the dev logs for Prehistoric Kingdom, but I thought I would cover this one. I had a few thoughts when I was reading through this, so it might be worth doing a video on. We'll go through the whole thing. We'll just spend longer on the stuff I want to talk about specifically. So we're looking at update 17, which is adding a few new animals, of course, and bringing in combat, which is something that's obviously been missing from Prehistoric Kingdom. It's also got some tweaks here to water, so we get these like different water kind of styles and colors now, where you can have this like clear water or this like darker tannin water, which is pretty cool. Not one of the big things I want to talk about. There's something about this I want to bring up later, but the water style itself is not a huge deal. We also have the Stegosaurus ontogeny here. If I do this, oh god, oh no. Sorry, let's start over. So yeah, we get a good look at the Stego ontogeny. I'm really excited to see Stegosaurus come to this game. It's been a glaring absence from the roster for quite a long time. Pretty neat to see the way the plates come in here. Looks pretty cool. I have a park I want to do in this probably at some point, but I need a Stegosaurus for it, so be probably the perfect time to do it. I quite like the pattern on this guy with the stripes. The plates look really interesting. So combat is like the big thing in here for this, right? And this is where I want to talk a little bit, not specifically about the combat mechanics directly when they're fighting, but the AI behind like when they fight, essentially. That's the very interesting thing to me. So yeah, like this is all very early days. It still seems to be very much like in progress. So they don't have like any like footage actually of them directly fighting. There's just some little basically first pass type things, like this screenshot of two Tyrannosaurs fighting. We don't actually get like video of this, just a screenshot, that kind of stuff. But they're working on having like a dynamic combat system, basically. So yeah, like here, the way combat works is they have a core set of attacks they can perform contextually depending on the species. This typically involves a bite, tail swipe, or headbutt. They can slayer on top of locomotion if their aggressor is too close. So this sounds to me like the fight should be much more dynamic than like JWE fights, where there's just like the same canned animations that just play as they trade off. Since the attack animations layer on top of like the movement, there should be a little bit more happening there, one would hope. And they talk here about like bluff charges and lunge attacks, leaps and chomps. So like a bunch of different kinds of attacks too, and not just the standard, trading back and forth some tackles or bites like in JWE. And yeah, to show how this works with locomotion, we've recorded some test footage. So they got this little clip here of just like basically their raptor displaying its attack animations, even though it's not in a proper fight. So you could still definitely kind of see the canned animation part of that, right? Like the leap. But there's still more going on here in this fight, in this half of the fight, right? Because we don't actually see there's no other animal here. It's just animations being played. But like compare this to JWE, he's like moved across the environment a bit during this. There's been more than one attack animation that he's played because he does these little bites and these leaps. Like, is this, amazingly immersive? Not necessarily, but it's definitely a step up from JWE if it lives up to the promise here in this devlog, right? We've also got the Stego attack animations here, which are exactly what you can expect. A tail swing. But yeah, like he does a little gallop there before that swing. Does he do a little gallop here before this swing? Yeah, it's just a different angle, so it's not as obvious. So it's like, basically the same thing of the attack animation is that little gallop into the tail swing. This is what interests me more. Exactly how an animal responds to aggression comes down to their combat profile. Databases where they create rules like become aggressive during mating seasons or chase threats away from your nest. Various conditions and filters allow us to build a comprehensive set of scenarios where we might want the animals to behave in a particular way. This sounds really cool to me. This is a problem. This is a big problem I have, especially in JWE3 at this point. It wasn't as egregious to me in 2, because in JWE2, everything was a little more simpler. And now we have these like similarly limited and robotic dinosaurs, but a very elaborate capability to build objects, which feels more disjointed from a design perspective to me. Like, I feel like the building complexity has vastly surpassed the actual complexity of the animals. And I think that's really bad, right? To have one thing that could be like you spend like hours like perfecting a building or an environment or a section of a park just to plop down some like very robotic and limited animals into it, and that is doesn't feel particularly good, right? So this sounds very interesting because this makes the animals feel different from each other, react differently depending on scenarios. It's not just, oh, there's an animal in my territory that I don't like, I'm going to start a fight with it over and over again, like it does in GWE. Oh, I don't know how if this will have any impact on breakouts, but that's the thing that always bothered me too in JWE is like when the animal is mad, it will just break out, and it became very robotic with how it would react to the reduction in comfort, pick a random section of fence, and then just run up to it, pause, do the attack, in this very like systematic and like linear algorithmic way. And so this like the fact that they're talking about like animal aggression changing depending on like mating season, actually interacting with aspects of the environment like defending a nest sounds really cool. Like, I don't think, here's my opinion, I don't think it's actually that complicated to make interesting animal AI. I think this is a really good system. You have some basic parameters that control how the animal reacts, and then you have environmental or other conditional parameters that determine which of those triggers are flipped. And you could actually potentially build up a pretty interesting and dynamic and complex system of animal behavioral AI in actually a very simple way. Like, I feel like it actually wouldn't be that dramatically difficult for JWE to implement at least a loose version of this, right? To have an animal be, maybe more aggressive towards enemies, other hostile species animals it doesn't get along with, being in its territory if it has young or something, right? That would be a relatively simple switch you could program into the code to the point where you might actually, have an actual behavioral difference in an animal that is like temporally variable that you could actually observe in game. Because right now we have nothing. An animal acts the same the day it's born to the day it dies. Nothing in its environment changes that beyond whether or not there's a thing it wants to fight or a thing it wants to smash. So this is very compelling to me. This sounds very cool. And yeah, so for each of these conditions, they can choose the likelihood of certain reactions. This is, again, a very simple way. You have a handful of basic behaviors. You have the chance the behavior happens, and you modulate the value of the chance the behavior happens by environmental or temporal conditions in the park. Simple. Very simple programming problem to solve, but adds a range of dynamic occurrences. So then the counters are varied while staying true to the core identity of an animal or family group. This sounds great. Been using the combat profiles to power threat display since U15. We'll continue to expand them as we make the next step. Awesome. And you can actually bring up the debug menu probably talking specifically here about like the beta branch or whatever. But you can basically see here in this image. Let's see. Let's do one of these. It's always hard to like know how to crop like a web page for one of these discussions here. But you've got like these different little like behavioral parameters here. So conditions, infant, adolescent, adult, male, female, angry, feeding, with family, activation chance, range multipliers, animal target filters, is my predator, lower threat, same species, infants, etc. Human target filter, then reactions, flee, walk, spar, threaten, chase off, attack, kill. Like, this is not complicated. This is not, like, the most complicated part of this The reason this hasn't been in this game until now, it's the animation side of things. The behavioral side of this, right, is simple. This little algorithm here to like take these parameters, run these checks, and execute some sort of outcome, simple. JWE should be able to do this. That's to me, that's just a simple truth. So yeah, very interested to see this in the game. Very excited about this. And yeah, here's another one. This is just like the attack types, like a lunge attack, a bite, circle target, bluff charge. Not anything too interesting to see from this one, but it's just showing more that in-game beta UI. Then we got Scrubland environmental stuff. I mean, I don't have much to say about this. I mean, this looks great. I think JWE3's done some good stuff with the environmental updates. I think if there's anything they suffer from in JWE3, it's blending. I think that's the big thing that like I would like to see for an update to JWE is better capability to like blend different environmental things together, like trees with like flower brushes, right? Being able to basically overlay brushes on top of each other would be really cool. Another thing I want to talk about here briefly is the water, not the different types of water. They show here the 6 varieties or whatever they're gonna do. So you got like natural, river, lagoon, and swell for like oceanic type water, basically, and then like some swampy, dystrophic or muddy water. And yeah, some changes like water rendering and stuff. There's a little Spinosaur video here. Just kind of showing how the updated water is going to look visually, basically, and like how the camera can track underneath. This is pretty similar to what we have in JW already. So I don't really have anything to say about this. The water depth, of course, is much more dynamic in PK than it is in JWE3, which is a bit disappointing, but to me, I'm not overly concerned about that angle of things. I don't really... I think if I have any gripe about the water in JWE3, it's the waterfalls occasionally look a little weird, and it'd be nice if that was tightened up. And it's still not particularly good to make rivers, which is what I want to talk about. So here they have a river they've drawn in PK, right? And they got a water replacement tool, basically, where they can switch out what type of water, which is very cool. But what I find more interesting about this is the margins. The way the water looks in conjunction with the terrain. Specifically, as they switch between these different types, it does kind of change the visual style of how the water blends with the land, which I think looks a lot nicer than what we have in JWE3. In particular, one thing that's always bothered me is I've never liked the way the water looks when you're trying to make like a river, which I think was always an annoyance in 2, but in 2 there was no reason to make a river except for aesthetics. Now in 3 we have the boat tour, which means there is kind of a reason to do a river, and I think it would be nice if the water looked better in conjunction with the environment when you were making a river. Like I think specifically this one here looks really nice. The way the margins of the water kind of mesh with the environment. So yeah, this is kind of my secondary thing I thought was interesting from this, was how nice the water looked. I think flowing water without it being a waterfall is really missing from 3. I think this sort of thing of having these like different styles of water to switch between would actually be really cool to see in JWE. Even if it was just still versus flowing, right? And like with the waterfall system, we do already have flowing water. So just literally take the waterfall system we have and then like do something with that dynamically for flat water, right? Like if you could define like a starting point for a water flow and an end point and have the water flow dynamically down whatever, environmental area you've made, that'd be really cool. That's probably that's more out there, more ambitious than I expect anything to happen, but it would still be cool if the water felt like it wasn't just a stagnant pond. And I definitely like also the lagoon water here is really nice. Let's find that. Yeah, right here where it's kind of got these like breakers and it looks nice and pleasant, like oceanic water. It's very cool. Another thing we really can't do in any way in GWE that sells it is that kind of beachfront ocean type vibe. Again, the water's very stagnant and static in GWE. So yeah, and then just a couple of screenshots of them like showing off some of the new water environments. They look great. And then the reveal that Pachycephalosaurus will be coming, which is not shocking. I'm pretty sure everybody expected this, and I think it was known. I mean, it's obviously there's going to be an animal as iconic as this in the game. Um, Unique ramming behavior, fighting off threats, competitive males during the breeding season. Sounds very cool. And it will have Stiggy Moloch is Pachycephalosaurus spinifer as an alternate take on the animal, which is also great. And then community spotlight stuff, we're not going to cover that. So yeah, um, it looks like I'm really looking forward to, like, update 17 is definitely going to be like we are going back to PK for a little bit because there's a lot of stuff coming in this update. A lot of stuff in general that's been talked about and teased and set up for PK that I'm very interested in. Um, and it's been a while since we've done PK, so I figured I should do something to like bring it back into, some degree of highlight on the channel here. So yeah, sound off on what you think about the devlog here. I think it's some great stuff. I think to me, Prehistoric Kingdom has never reached JWE caliber uh, as a full game. There's been areas where it has always excelled, and what happens is over time the game continues to find more areas that it excels, and continues to close the gap and find more ways where it pushes past JWE. And I do feel like I believe in them. Like I believe that when this game does properly hit like 1.0, no longer early access, proper release, that it will be better than JWE on the whole. There's things that I still prefer from JWE. Obviously, I have a lot of attachment to the Jurassic Park franchise. That should not be surprising. Um, and just like I like the animal skins they have, but I really would prefer a recoloring system like JWE because I think the wider range of colors is fun. I think having just like 3 to 5 color palettes, like patterns, like combinations that you can pick from, is pretty limiting. I understand why they're doing it. It does give the animals more of a cohesive identity and allows them to build more unique skins. Because to be fair, in JWE3 and JWE in a general, the franchise at large, a lot of the skins are bad, right? I mean, there are animals like Herrerasaurus that, especially in 2, had essentially no good skins. So I would prefer, 3 animals or three combinations of skin color and patterning color that look good over, 50, 60 combinations that look bad. However, I think if you took these really good patterns they've consistently applied to their animals and allowed them to be recolored, that wouldn't be a concern, right? The big problem with JWE's skin system is not the actual system, it's how lackluster some of the patterns are. The frontier splotches, as people complain on the subreddits. And plenty of them look great. There's plenty of animals they've done in JWE, especially newer animals like DLC animals, in the back half of JW2 and the new animals in JW3, which are pretty much universally great in terms of like color and pattern combos. Not every animal, Iguanodon is pretty bad, but like most of the newer animals have been essentially 10 out of 10 in the color and pattern department. 80% of them maybe. But yeah, I would really like to see that. The opportunity to like do a park build themed around something and then try to make the skin colors match is always fun. And just that's not something we have access to in PK at all. Um but PK is more of a game that's kind of inherently receptive to modding versus a licensed product, so maybe that's something that could be modded in someday or added down the road. Who knows? Anyway, that's enough yapping. Let's end this video here. Until next time.